Hey everybody, welcome to episode number 34. Today is exciting. We're doing our June stats. Every month we do our statistics, but this year this episode, we're also going to be doing kind of a mid-year review. So for those that didn't catch it a few months ago, kind of at the beginning of the year or right at the end of the year, but we had done some predictions for 2024. So we're also going to kind of see how the year is unfolding in relation to how we predicted. So first, Heather, why don't you give us mine will kind of combine my stats and kind of how the year is unfolding. But let's hear about your stats first.
Sure. Yeah. So we actually saw a really interesting shift in our market in June. So historically, the early part of the year leading into spring tends to be a little bit slower. And then once about June hits, the market gets crazy for the rest of summer. But we kind of saw the opposite this year for some reason. So this is June, obviously. So last month in May, we saw 1 month of inventory. In June, we saw 1.2 months of inventory. So inventory is going up slightly. The good news, though, is that even though the market's slowing down a little bit over June, we still saw a very healthy year-over-year appreciation. In May, our year-over-year appreciation was about 15%, and last month in June was 13%. But we are still seeing a median closed sales price of 1.635 million, so 1,635,000. So even though our market's slowed down, like we're still doing really well year-over-year, which is awesome. Also, our fun little sheet about how we are doing as far as multiple offers and everything goes. The last 2 months, we've seen roughly about 58% of homes going multiple offers and therefore going over list price by, I believe the median was like 8%. While this last month in June, we saw only 50% of homes going over list price with a median of 7%. So there's not quite as much competition going on, it seems. But what is particularly interesting is that we're seeing it vastly, like majorly in pockets. Like literally, for our area, usually general town to general town is pretty, they see similar trends. But right now, it can literally be from one street to the next. It's being completely different things. So we're seeing literally one street going multiple offers and the same house one street over sitting on the market for 2 months. So it's been really, really interesting kind of seeing that shift. But obviously our numbers are still showing that, you know, our market is still pretty strong. Yeah, I guess that's the best overview. Most of these are just random other numbers, nerdy things and stats, but that is the best overview of ours, I think, right now.
Yeah. So, can you share, just because I know I make you share this quite frequently, but your cost of waiting sheet?
Yes.
It's super cool, and it kind of ties into a little bit of what I'm going to talk about when we're kind of looking at where we are right now in our particular market.
Yeah. So this is it. Yeah, there we go. Now it's pulled up. So this is the cost of waiting a year. So if you were to purchase something last year in June of 2023, you would have paid, the median sales price was 1.45 million. This year is 1,635,000. So you basically could have gained a potential equity of 185,000 from last year to this year. Interest rates did go up from last year, but not by a heck of a lot, less than a quarter of a point. And yeah, so it shows basically how your monthly payments would have differed. So if you were to buy a house last year, you versus this year, you would see about a $1,400 per month increase in your monthly payments. So yeah,
Plus,
really.
Yeah, plus the 17,000 loss of potential equity growth. Not potential, because now we're looking in hindsight, but you know, the people that bought last year have already had a $17,000 per equity increase,
Mhm.
plus they're saving the $1,400 a month. So yeah, I love that one. It's very interesting because it kind of shows a little bit, like I said, about what I want to talk about when we talk about kind of how the year's looking for us. So yeah, so for us, normally when we do our stats, it's a little early in the month for our, I guess, more regional stats to come out. So this month, we pushed it back a little bit later. I'm going to be able to share these with you guys, and because I think it's very appropriate. So normally we're kind of looking at, I do stats for month over month. So how's this month compared to last month? However, given that it's June's, well, it's July, but it's June's data because obviously that's the month that's been closed out now. And it'll also give you, this is going to be the 6 southern counties plus Greene County. So it's a little more data than we're normally dealing with when we normally are just looking at one county. So it's going to be a little bit different, but I think that it's very interesting and I'm not really surprised. So first of all, let me say this. When we talked this in January, or I think it was in January, we kind of did our predictions for the year. And I predicted that the market would likely, if I recall, that the market would likely continue to soften, but we were expecting interest rates to go down at some point during the summer, certainly by now. And then we would have, potentially a flood of buyers coming into the market who have been sitting on the fence for all of, since kind of they spiked. And so what did not happen as expected is that interest rates have not went down yet mid-July. Now, they are still anticipating that they will go down, the economists and so on. So, and I still believe they're going to come down this year. However, we were certainly expecting them July at the latest to come down. So I think it did make things, I guess, trend in the direction that I thought that they would trend, but for longer than I thought that they would, if that makes sense. So here is our stats. Again, this is for the 6 southern counties plus Greene County. And this is year over year, not month over month. So when we're looking at our number of sales went down. So we went in last year in June, we had 611. Now we have 552 sales. So we've had less sales than we had last year, which we were already feeling very much the effects from the interest rates going up in 2023. For the average sales price, actually for the first time, I believe in quite some time, we actually had a little bit of a dip year over year. It's actually been just a little bit up every month up till now, year over year. But now we've had our first little dip, which is 2%. So it's not, extreme. But it does show that, when you look at the next two, so we went from 45 days on the market. And I think at one point we were down to like 20 something days on the market. It was crazy. And now we're sitting at 59 days on the market. So things are sitting for longer. People had gotten kind of, agents and sellers and buyers for that matter had kind of gotten it used to, a house just like going under contract within the first couple of days. And we're not necessarily seeing that anymore as much. Now, if a house is very competitively priced, it's very likely it'll get multiple offers as soon as it hits the market for sure. So we still are seeing a lot of multiple offers. But for those who are kind of pricing, if we went down a little bit, but they were anticipating it to still be going up a little bit, then, those are kind of sitting on the market for longer. And then our current inventory, this is the thing we really pay attention to the most, to see how the market's doing and the direction that it's headed. So last year, we had 1,545 homes on the market. Right now we have 2,239, which is up 45%, which is tremendous. And remember that our sales are actually down. So we that puts us at about 4 months of inventory. So we're actually still technically in a seller's market, but we're definitely starting to feel that balanced market come into play. We have a strong market as far as, houses are still selling pretty quickly. Again, our sales price is pretty comparable to what it was last year, and pretty comparable to the last few months. But we're definitely seeing where you're going to be able to, as a buyer, and this was kind of my point on that cost of waiting. So right now, buyers are in a pretty good spot. We can't predict, obviously, if interest rates will come down, but we do expect that interest rates will come down soon, and then the prices will adjust upwards, because affordability will be better at that time. So point being that right now, where we're at for the buyers is so if a seller needs to sell, like right now, they're very motivated. Pricing is key. We got to price it right, and we got to get it on the market and get it under contract very quickly. If not, there's some sellers that are just kind of like, hey, they don't need to sell in a super timely manner. So for the buyers out there, with the inventory going up, the sellers are feeling that. Days on market going up again. So we're kind of like, hey, what gives? This house been on the market for 2 weeks. Like, we're not used to this. And then sales are down. So there's actually less buyers, more inventory, more sellers, less buyers. So buyers right now are able to, for the most part, do some negotiations. A lot of times, get some seller concessions. They can take their time. Again, unless super hot property at a super hot price, they can actually go look at it and stuff we weren't able to do in the past. And compare some options, a little more relaxed shopping experience. And so it's really, and then to be able to negotiate potentially on the sales price, potentially on the seller concessions, or other things that might be important to the buyer, or the seller for that matter. So I think buyers are in a really good spot right now. I do expect that, like I said, interest rates will go down, prices will go up, is what, I don't have a crystal ball, but that's what I'm anticipating. And I think that the buyers will not be in as good of a position. Just for sanity's sake, but also for, being able to have those items that they can negotiate of what's important, and maybe have a little more selection. Like right now, we're finally at the point where it's like, you could actually get what you want instead of just having to pick from what's out there, kind of a thing. And so that is why I wanted to just see that high cost of waiting, because I'm very concerned. We have a lot of pent-up buyer demands. Rents are high. So there's a lot of people that are really itching to get into the housing market that are still on the fence lines. And I just think that that waiting and then competing with everyone when everyone's ready all at the same time, I think now would be definitely a good time at least to explore some options and shop around. So that's what I got. So Heather, how's your shaping up for, or do you have any questions first of all?
Not really, mostly because I forgot just how similar our predictions were, which I say this a lot, but really, despite how different our markets are, there are still national trends that are going to make our markets have a lot of parallels. And really just listening to your how your projections shaped up to where you are now just reminded me of that, just how similar our markets can trend.
Yeah.
Prices are different, even if you have more inventory than us, like we still have very similar trend lines, which is really fascinating to see. So no questions yet on my side, but when we're looking at I guess the predictions that I made, there are four main predictions that I kind of focused on. One of them is that rates would drop, and like as you talked about, we expected rates to kind of be dropping already, and we're not seeing that, but we are expecting the next Fed meeting for them to lower rates. We'll see how that goes. We're still kind of thinking that are going to see quite a bit of a decrease by the end of the year, which will, as you said, see pricing go up significantly because of affordability. So we're just kind of waiting for that to happen at the moment. But I agree with you that it will still happen, or should still happen. Lack of crystal ball, but yeah, if when it does happen, we are going to see rates increase, or I'm sorry, prices increase, which will yeah, somewhere. The other thing I said is that despite where the interest rates being where they've been, we are still going to see a pretty healthy year-over-year appreciation. So last year, in November of 2023, despite interest rates first getting to that high point, like that was post the 8%, but we're still hovering in the 7%. And we still saw a 7% year-over-year appreciation in home values, which was impressive considering how much everybody was freaking out about the interest rates. And as predicted, buyers are starting to think, hey, is this the new norm? I guess like if I really need to buy and I've been putting it off, like I'm going to buy. And so to give you an idea of what that's looked like with appreciation, in May of 2024, I talked about this earlier a little bit, but in May of 2024, we saw 17% year-over-year appreciation, while last month in June, we saw 13% year-over-year appreciation. And that just goes to show, yes, buyers are like, well, crap, I've been putting off buying a house and I kind of need to upgrade or downgrade or whatever. So let me get into the market. So we still saw that appreciation. And again, to your point, even with that appreciation, if interest rates lower, we're going to see that go even higher. So excited what's going to come of that. The other one was we expected to see a slight uptick in inventory, but we're still going to see a lot of hesitant sellers because they are hesitant to buy again because they most likely have I think it was predicted that roughly 85%, I think it is, of homeowners have a interest rate of, 3.5% or less. And so sellers are hesitant because they don't want to get rid of that interest rate. And so, and just as predicted, so this same week of July last year, we had roughly 3,300 homes actively on the market. This week, in fact, as of right before we started recording this video, we had just over 4,400 homes on the market in King County. So not a massive uptick, but it is an uptick because people are, again, starting to get desperate. They need to sell. They need to buy something new, whether it be upgrade, downgrade, whatever. So we are seeing that little uptick, just nothing crazy, just as we expected. And then the last one was that buyers were going to find the higher interest rates to be the new norm, as we already mentioned, and are going to flock to the market. This one has been bizarre because if we had done this year in review last month, my approach to it would have been different than this month, because during the first several, and I talked about this a little bit with the stats, but for the first several months of the year where our market is usually slow and getting ready for summer, we saw craziness. It was insane. And now all of a sudden last month, and even worse this month in July so far, the market's slowing down. There's not as many buyers. And for the first time, I looked at our new listings to pending listings or under contract listings, and our new listings is actually outpacing pending listings in King County, which is crazy. It's usually almost double pending to what's new. So, but we are, like I said, seeing an interesting shift where they're literally like one neighborhood to the next or one street to the next to seeing a completely different reaction from buyers. So, yeah, so all in all, we're pretty much on trend. Like we said with the interest rates, like it's not quite the timing we expected, but other than that, it's pretty accurate to what we kind of figured would happen. So I'm really curious to see what July and August stats are going to end up looking like as the summer continues, especially with our local market being in this weird summer lull, which doesn't make any sense. So, yeah.
I think in your case, like it was, and it could be a little bit here, but I feel like more there. It's like something happened when the new year hit, and people were just like, you know what, we're not waiting around anymore, you know.
Yeah.
And we didn't feel that as much here. Of course, like we've talked about before, one thing here is we're really struggling with kind of multiple things. One thing being our insurance costs have went up tremendously. So it's like the insurance costs are higher, taxes have went up, interest rates have went up. So I think that, you know, the affordability is just, people are really struggling with the affordability right now. But the alternative for most people is to rent, you know, because a lot of our rentals here are just private landlords with mortgages, and the higher insurance costs and taxes they're going to be reflected in the rent amounts. And so, you know, that I think has kind of been a little bit of a push-pull that I think will loosen up with the interest rates. But again, they're going to be ultimately paying more. I think right now the best case for buyers is to go ahead, again, shop around, take your time, lock in a house that is great for you, have some negotiation power, and then hopefully, you know, as people are anticipating and the economists are participating, interest rates drop. And a lot of lenders are offering after 6 months, if the rates drop, then they can refinance for very minimal cost. And then they're already locked into the price that they paid, and they're already locked into, they're already living there, they're already building equity and all those things that we talked about. And so I really, really encourage people that are kind of on the fence that maybe at least let's have a conversation about what going ahead and buying now would look like, as opposed to potentially, you know, once the interest rates drop. So that's all I've got for today.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point, is people just don't realize what options there are. Don't let interest rates or what the media is telling you about interest rates and what's going on in the market scare you. Like, just talk to a professional, talk to Cassie, talk to me, and figure out what your options are, because you might be really surprised at what you can afford and what you can do to get into a place. So that's an amazing point. I love that. And just talk to somebody.
Yes, definitely. Well, we will see you guys next week. We are going to be kind of reintroducing ourselves for those who maybe have just started listening over the last couple of months. And we're super excited about that. And we would love to hear from you guys as well. So anytime y'all drop us a comment, shoot us a DM. And if you have any topics you want us to cover, whether that's next week or ongoing, definitely let us know.
Yep, please do.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.